Look, we all love the Bustling Fungus. It's a big meme for me, and it seems to be for the whole community as well. Because, like, come on, it's a game that punishes you for standing still. Why on God's green earth would you stand still? Get it? Because it's green. Well, that's what I'm here to talk about, because out of the original roster for items, I don't think there are any quite as disappointing as pulling a green mushroom. Maybe the PSG, but that's more based on the internal logic we know about the game, and it only starts punishing you after the one-shot threshold, so it only really gets bad around stage 6 onwards. Dishrumbolini stacks up pretty well against the items of today. Both Seekers of the Storm and Survivors of the Void have their fair share of stinkers, but enough ranking it like a YouTuber who ran out of ideas. Let's talk about the mushroom, the myth, the legend, the Bustling Fungus. I think it would be best with a brief overview of stats. If you stand still for 1 second, you will emit a 3.5 meter radius that heals for 4.5% of your health. And they will scale an extra 1.5 meters, an extra 2.25% health for every one you have stacked. Based on the stats alone, newer players would think I'm crazy for saying it's bad or even underpowered. But stats alone are deceiving. Something can look incredibly good on paper but underperform in practice, and that's what the fungus does. Talking about an item in the practical sense can be pretty hard with how random the game is. Every run will be different, but a few things stay relatively the same. One of the main things that's always the same is you don't want to stop moving. This game is highly mobile for a few reasons. Every character has a movement ability, even the captain. If you want to be good at this game, being highly mobile is a must. You need to be constantly itching to keep your time per level to a minimum, or you risk being outscaled by every monster in the later stages, meaning you aren't going to be standing still a whole lot even if you wanted to in the first place. Let's say you get into a scuffle and start to lose. I don't think anyone wants to spend time standing still knowing something is actively looking to try and kill you. You'll prefer to be on the move so you can dodge more attacks and spam for monsters that are trying to finish you off. That's not even getting into the clusterfuck later stages can be. What is cool about this item is that it can out-heal damage that most early game enemies can produce, which would be nice if you didn't lose your healing stacks from being knocked back, which sadly even fucking beetles do. So needless to say, even though I spent the last few minutes explaining why it's not very great, there are a few issues with the Mushoshi. But even with all the issues this item has, I find it fascinating that I still find it very helpful. It's not bad or outright detrimental. It's okay, dev team, we still love you. And I do truly like that this weapon isn't great, but it's good for select scenarios. It's only good when you have time to stand still, which makes it extremely gratifying to get use out of it, and even better to help your team out with it. Being able to heal my friends to full by just being a diet totem of healing is cool. Not to mention the Bungus is one of the strongest early game items to help regen if you take a particularly nasty fall, or laser beam, or backshot. My point is, this is one of the best early game items. The amount of enemies just spawning in on you from level 1 to 3 is pretty infrequent, which means you can make great use of it with blood shrines, fights, or just general foolishness. You just have to keep an eye out for getting jumped like someone wearing an expensive watch. Oh no. Because any knockback can kick you out of it and lead to one pathetic death. Even in stages 3 to 6 it can be useful. It's just a bit more of a gamble considering how much the gremlins spawn in and how much stronger they tend to be. Like, I've gotten some use out of it, but the times are so rare because of how mobile the late game enemies are. The Bath Mat Fungus is also one of the few items that is extremely good on one class compared to every other class. The Engineer can get massive value out of the fungus that it actually becomes insane how much your game is flipped on its head. All I see is rotten decay with these cute little mushrooms on top. All I want is a massive stack of shrooms when I play Engineer. The Engineer has the unique ability of having a fucking auto-aiming gun that can use the Engineer's items including the fungus. Combine that with them being incapable of being knocked back and you have one nasty zone of control. And finally, the last thing I have to talk about is how it becomes one of the best items in Eclipse. There are two types of Eclipse players, the people who loop and the people who don't. I'm usually one of the people that doesn't loop because looping is just not as enjoyable for me. So that means the green mold and the PSG are the best friends I could have. All these items do is give me extra health and extra healing on a mode where I could really use both. Even with the 50% debuff for the fungus, it still has some of the best healing now being reduced to 2.25% with only one. You'll run into a lot of the same worries and issues, but if you're playing Eclipse for the added challenge, you'll probably know how best to take advantage of them. Something to explain in black and white because I'm horrible at subliminal messaging is that I like the healing fungi. It isn't the best, and you know that. I can't use it all the time like the goat's foot, or the steroids, or the armor plate. It's not even good most of the time. It's only good at its one job, And if you know how to play well, you can get a pretty damn good reward for trying to make the most of your kit. This item isn't something to throw away until the really late game. It's not going to be great all the time, something that you can use while running, and all around better in every way. Oh, come on. The Weeping Fungus is basically, what if fungus, but always good, giving you 2% HP for just sprinting. So you'll overall be making way more use out of this because you're just going to be sprinting all the time. And it does have weaker stats, but it's also going to be used far more, so it's going to end up eclipsing the fungus in every way possible. It's good on every character, but you already know that if you played this game. Now, if you've been with this channel for a while, you know my feelings about this item. It's really good, but it's really boring. For how much I talk about something being good or bad, sometimes things just don't need to be good all the time. Sometimes a weaker item can encourage out-of-the-box thinking. Sometimes you shouldn't be so focused on what's good or bad. Sometimes you don't need to act. Sometimes you just need to stand still.